the feeling that a professional nodded me through at my most vulnerable, at my weakest point, where I was
Yeah.
effectively mentally the equivalent of in an ambulance. Help me, help me, help me. And that person who was administering to me led me down a terrible, terrible path. And they're nowhere to be seen. When I email them, they don't even answer me. That is devastating.
Yeah. That is just, it's like abandonment and injury and betrayal and flippancy. You know, I think I, of course, have no idea what it's like to experience this detransition experience, but when I think about a person coming to a doctor in pain,
Yeah.
with real distress, and when a doctor just is like, oh, just this thing is fine, no complications to worry about, that is just so dangerous and so careless and such a complete like neglecting of the responsibility to care for someone in distress. It's really a horrible experience.
And to think that, the loss, one thing in my work with detransitioners has really come up so often, the loss of trust in anybody or anything. Because how could you trust? Because I was at my weakest and I did the right thing. I went to the professionals to look for mental health because I knew I was in trouble. And when I did the right thing, even though I was so weak, I was brought down a terrible, terrible path. And now, it's some years later, it's all gone wrong. And to ask myself to go back into a therapist's office, I underestimated. I knew it, but I didn't know it. Now I have a depth of knowing of the absolute deep, deep, deep distrust of anybody who's in an office saying, come and tell me about it. It feels like the scene of the crime. It feels like this is where I got attacked in this exact manner, in a warm relationship where I put my trust in somebody who seemed wise. And so to be able to do it again is arguably, I noticed one detransitioner. I thought it was such a lovely pinned tweet. And the person said, these are the books that got me through my detransition. And I thought, I get it.
Oh, we should find that.
Yeah, actually, because they're a great list of books, and I know where they are.
Okay.
I'll get them.
That's great. We'll include it.
I just thought that's such an empowering way to go at it, if you follow me, rather than a kind of and I say that who's somebody who's trying to give therapy to,
I know.
it has to be so gentle, and the person who's in the detransition space needs to kind of always feel like they're in charge and tread very, very slowly, because the days of putting your trust in somebody else are kind of over forever. I've noticed that I don't think they'll regain trust in the institutions, in the authority figures, and I think that's fair enough.
I think I've seen that, especially when the clinician was like a gender clinician with a purely affirmative approach. And it's interesting because I've seen some other people who detransition almost like defending their therapist, saying like, I got a good process, but we both decided that transitional was right for me, which I find really interesting. And I'm curious, like, if we caught up with a person like that 10 years later, would they feel the same way? And it's kind of like that thing, like we can't afford to have regrets sometimes.
And
obviously some people do because they're raging and they're very angry, but some people are just like, well, I think I just got a good process. And it's really interesting.
Can I just say, though, that's what's so deceptive about effectively bad therapy is it's often very pleasant. If you follow me, if you have somebody nodding along in a soothing manner when you're very distressed and kind of encouraging you to take whatever kind of decision you come up with in your distress and say, yeah, I think you can handle that. Yeah, I think that could be for you. That you'll find it hard to say that was wrong for me because I always felt good when I left. But if you look back and you think, well, but in the 15 months, I took really difficult decisions that have wrecked my life in many ways, and they just They never challenged it. They never gave me another option. They led me along. You know what I mean? So just because you felt good in the moment doesn't mean it was good therapy. That's affirmative therapy for you. It's deceptively pleasant. But it's like a friend who'll just nod along and they won't engage in a way that
Yeah.
somebody loves you will and say, really? Are you sure? Can we look at this? And that's the kind of the deeper relationship of your partner or your very good friend or your sibling and you'll know, oh, this is hard work, but actually I need this.
Oh, that's so deep.